Hey, everybody, it's me, Mark Wiggins. Welcome to Off the Bench Live, where we are talking about the topics. I'm your host, Mark Wiggins. And tonight, I have the illustrious, pseudonymous master speaker, trainer, person, good friend, longtime speaker friend, Mr. Eddie Francis. What's up, Eddie? How are you tonight?
Hold on, man. That Loyola education didn't do me any good. What was the word? Pseudonymous.
Listen, I got stuck. I was trying to, it just didn't work out, so I just played it off. So
No, that's all right, man. You dropped an ACT, SAT word on me. I'm good. I'm good, brother. How are you?
Man, I'm doing awesome, Eddie. It's always a pleasure to have you on and catch up and talk about speaking things. Again, for those who don't know, Eddie Francis was a trainer back in the day. And people ask me, well, how and what do I do and how I learned how to do it? Here's another person who's helped me do these things to speak and do whatever. Eddie was one of our trainers way back in the day. He likes to joke a lot, but I know he's Greek, therefore his technology and technique was a little bit on the rougher side of things, but I understood where it's coming from. I'm not going to drop the H word because we don't do those things in 2023, but in 96 and 97, it was a problem. Absolute problem. What's up, Eddie? You good, man? What's down? Go down to New Orleans. What's happening?
Man, everything is good in New Orleans, man. We're happy down here. The Pelicans are having a good season. No, they're having a great season. The Pels are having a great season.
Oh, let me jump in right here before we get to what we're talking about. What is it about New Orleans that every superstar is fragile as a piece of glass? When Davis left, he done hurt his foot, and he pulled his hamstring the other night again. Bro, put his hand. What's going on? Y'all can't keep your players down there. Is it the gumbo? Is it the Hurricanes? What's going on down there that way?
Well, you talking about Zion?
Yeah,
man, Zion's gonna be all right. He's gonna be all right. Look, I think with him, I do think that part of it is his build. I think it's his weight. Even though he's trimmed down a whole lot. Now Anthony Davis, I got nothing for you. We're just happy he's gone.
I'm sure you are.
And you know what? Let me say this. I want to clear this up for everybody. We were happy that Joker was leaving when he was leaving. so when he started bumming out on the Lakers, Pelicans Nation was like, "We told y'all."
I didn't think he was that great. I thought it was a bad trade anyway. Why? It's like Curtis Ellison from Louisville back in the day.
Let me tell you something, man. We got Brandon Ingram, who is leading the team. He's going to get healthy, and he is going to bust some blah when he's really healthy. I'm going to tell you right now, we really miss Josh Hart. We love people in New Orleans. We love Josh Hart. Mm-hmm. And Ball, we like Lonzo when he was here. We really did, but we kind of miss him too. But we feel like we got the best of that trade. We got the best of it. And now you got Willie Green, who's just like, he's coach of the year, hands down. He's coach of the year.
No, he's done a great job. I'm really liking the young spunky teams. I was in Orlando. I got to watch them play. They scrappy. My Cavaliers, scrappy. I like that. The old dogs look like the old dogs. I'm tired of, Durant and them kind of putting it together right now, which is scary. But LA, LeBron is 62. I love LeBron, all things to the king, but bruh, it's
hey, man.
He's still balling at a high level, which is impressive.
He is, but man, I'm telling you, you're right though. You're right though. Watching a young team though, like we got Jose Alvarado down here, I should say. That dude, he hides out on the baseline and steals balls all night long. It's the funniest thing to watch. It's the funniest. Like their teams, they get traveling calls because they're busy trying to find him. It is the funniest thing to watch. We got Jose, we got Najee Marshall, who's doing his thing. We got this rookie Dyson Daniels. I mean, we got a squad. Like we are seriously squad up. Nice and the thing that I love the most is that even though Zion's out right now, Pels aren't going to miss a beat. Not going to miss a beat.
No, I'm actually pulling for dude. I mean, he's got that. He's Barkley 2.4.
Yeah,
and he should listen to Barkley because Barkley's like, hey, you need to lose some more weight, bro. And he may not be able to. It may just be his body type, but he's gonna have to. He will have to modify his game. Trust me, trust and believe. You can't keep doing that more than a couple more years. The track record and the data is evident. It's right there. You cannot play that way forever.
Young Buck is excited though. He's excited. He's trying to make his mark.
He was lit it up.
He's trying to make his mark.
I watched Ja when I was in Memphis. I got to see him play. Like, yeah, go ahead, bro. They waiting for you going up. They waiting for you to come back down. They're gonna keep you, but he's really good. He's really good.
Yeah, buddy.
Got to do that.
Yeah, buddy.
Which brings us to the reason why we were on tonight. Eddie, you had a podcast on your For Our Edification. Is that correct? That's
Yep, For Our Edification. Yep.
Y'all go subscribe to the podcast. It's on all the major platforms. And you had a discussion and made a post, and I made a comment. So you were talking about we're talking about Deion. The world's talking about Deion, the move, the impact, the why shouldn't he? Is he a hero? Is he not a hero? Is he trash? Did he betray the Black community? And you had a brother on from JSU. Tell me more about that conversation, because I heard you listen to your podcast, and I got questions and I got some statements. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the brother I had on is a brother by the name of Eddie Brown. He does PR down here in New Orleans. He has his own PR firm, and he's a graduate of Jackson State. And he did PR at Jackson State as well. And he's real smart, and he really, really invests in the history of his alma mater. He knows the backwards and forward. And I thought that he would make some very thoughtful comments about it. And I called him up and I was like, I said, would you be on my podcast to talk about this Deion thing? He was like, bruh, I've been wanting to talk about this. And he went in the direction I didn't expect him to go when he answered the question. He was like, I don't really care about football. He was like, I went to the football games. I love my Tigers, but I wasn't into football like everybody else was. To me, what everybody's missing in this discussion is that Jackson State has had this heritage. They've had this greatness, and basically didn't need Deion to bring the school the kind of notoriety that people thinks that he brought them in. So what he was doing in his argument was he was separating football from the institution. And my argument was this. I had two arguments, and he and I talked about this. My first argument was that Deion didn't somehow save the football program. He didn't save Jackson State. And that's really directed at all these people who don't really, number one, they don't know anything outside of sports. Because the sports heads were the ones who were just like, I never heard of Jackson State. I was like, so what? That doesn't mean nobody else has heard of it. And then you had the ones who were in HBCU culture who were just like, well, Deion, we kind of need people like Deion. And that was my second argument. And my second argument was, HBCUs don't need heroes, and you're talking to somebody who is a PR and marketing director at his third HBCU. And I've seen people come through with the whole hero complex thing. HBCUs don't need heroes. HBCUs need supporters. HBCUs need strong communities. That's what we really need. So for all the people who think that Deion was somehow the hero who came in with his cape and he gave Jackson State something that they had never had before and all that stuff, I was like, nah, that's not really true. I mean, first of all, let's be clear. That man deserves all the credit in the world for all two of the football seasons he put together. So he put together two great seasons for Jackson State. Credit deserved. Did he raise Jackson State's profile? I think to some degree he did, but I think it was more related to football than the institution itself. And I would be curious but here's the thing I would really be curious about. I would be curious as to whether or not donations to the university increased. Now, I can see the boosters pouring more money into the football program, but I would be curious as to what kind of effect it had on the university financially. And so that was my thing. I really wanted to look at something that really speaks to how much bigger HBCUs are than this Deion thing. And now we all see it because, Jackson State, and I know everybody is all, well, was Jackson State on ESPN before that? And it was like, maybe the football team wasn't on ESPN before that. But again, what my argument is, stop acting like the university was suffering and he saved the entire institution from closing its doors. That's my thing. So that's where I was coming from with that. And that's what Eddie Brown and I talked about.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. And Just total disclaimer, PWI, proud of it, got 2 degrees and no college student debt. So,
and I need to put my disclaimer out too. I mean, because I have my undergrad degree from PWI, but I do have my master's degree from an HBCU from Tennessee State, and but I mean, for the longest, my only connection to HBCUs, honestly, was as an employee. So,
and I love the points that you made. They're all valid points. What I was hearing, the reverb that I was getting was that, I guess, not along the lines of the heroism, but the you owe us-ism. Like, you supposed to come and stay forever. Why you're here, but why would you ever leave us? We are who we are. Why are you leaving? And I'm like you. It's football. Mm-hmm. It is the culture of football, and when it happened on the HBCU campus, all of a sudden it was shocking. Like, how could you ever leave? How could you ever do this? How could you whatever? And I'm thinking, hold on. If I remember my statistics correctly, if 75% people leave for Christmas break and don't come back and graduate from the old scripts, that does not preclude athletes. The number is actually higher. So we got that. We got kids leaving in football their 3rd year to go pro or leave out. Basketball, a semester. Everybody else, these things were going on anyway. Mm-hmm. They go on now. Mm-hmm. So why is it such a calamity for those who attend HBCUs that it happened to them? Like, you're immune to something that happens everywhere else. What about those kids? And I'm saying, what about them? They knew they know what's going on in there. Coaches are leaving. Lane Kiffin, Jack smashed Tennessee, got there, unpacked, and left and went west. It happens all the time. And the comment that I had made earlier was about him leaving was, if you think you got it bad, let's talk about Navy. We don't expect Navy to necessarily be highly competitive. It's not we want them to be. We need them to produce great leaders and great fighters and, military personnel, which they do. Mm-hmm. They fired this brother because he couldn't beat Army. So he got snatched at the end of the game, talking about, bro, we appreciate your tenure, but you're gone. He begging for his job. I'll play for free. I'll coach for free. Let me finish my thing. Commitment.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that was more beating Army. This is not Alabama Auburn.
Right.
But I get the thing. And we're not immune either. And you ran him up the pole, but he did do great things while he was there. He did, in my opinion, elevate not just Jack State, but HBCUs in general. You facilitated and got not just a top 10 recruit, you got the top recruit to show his face on a Black campus and sign and play.
For a year, yeah.
Irrelevant. The question is moot.
What is it though? Because
I think so, because the way the culture is now at this portal, if you don't like what I'm doing, I'm leaving. I'm going here, I'm going there. That's what I'm saying. They're not immune to anything. So you're basically becoming more relevant like everybody else. You're becoming more like everybody else. It's just the money makes things move. Mm-hmm. You got kids now considering, I mean, they're already starting to go to HBCU. We saw the here in Howard, I guess a year and a half, 2 years ago, some top tier recruit basketball players coming to Howard. Now you got kids going. I think a lot had to do with the NIL and money. Mm-hmm. I think a lot more Black kids would go where their parents went, but their parents are saying, they got money over here. We're not going. Mm-hmm. It ain't the kids, it's the parents. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe because I'm getting NIL money, I can still go there and get paid and still get to lead, because you can do that better now than you could back in the 80s and 90s. You had to be Power 5, whatever they were. You weren't coming from D2, and you rarely came from HBCU to get to the league.
Yeah.
So those things were made, and I just found it interesting how defensive people were getting about this whole discussion. I'm like, did you really think he was going to stay? Did you thought?
But here's why though, because this man came in and said God sent him to Jackson State, which I guess God did send him to Jackson State. But what he did is, so here's the first thing I think people need to understand when it comes, and I had to learn this when I worked at my first HBCU, Southern University of New Orleans. And I was brand new there. I was brand new to HBCU culture. And I thought I had a whole bunch of stuff figured out, and I didn't, because I'm going to tell you something right now. HBCU culture will humble you real quick. Once you get in. So I always say that, I've been saying this since this whole Deion thing. HBCU culture is like a hip hop cipher. you got to get in the cipher, right? And once you get in the cipher, you got to know your place in the cipher. Mm-hmm. Like you really, really got to know your place. You can't run in the cipher and act like you the hottest one spitting, and you just walked in there and you got a whole bunch of cats around you who've been spitting hot for a minute. So HBCUs are the same way. Like if you come from outside of HBCU culture into HBCU culture, there's a learning curve, and you have really, really got to sit down, shut up, and listen. And I say all that to say that what it is that HBCUs are really built on this concept very strongly of family. Very, very strong concept. And I know people will say, well, I go to a small white liberal arts school. They like family too. It's still a different family, because one of the things that HBCUs are so good at doing is they are so good at social mobility. They take a kid who's from the ghetto. They take a kid who is from rural wherever. That kid doesn't know anything about school. Their family doesn't know anything about school, about college. And they say, you know what? We're going to walk you through this thing. And we don't care what it takes to get you through. I don't care if I got to drag you through this thing. We're going to drag you through and get you to the other side. We're going to get you that degree. And what happens is it's the hierarchy of needs. You have these people who go into HBCUs. They have all the basic needs that they haven't really gotten. They get to an HBCU, they get security, they get family, they get community. And then they reach this point of self-actualization when they get that degree, and they feel like they can take on the world. And a lot of them do go out and take on the world and do some cool stuff. Mm-hmm. So when you have somebody like a Deion Sanders, a personality that dynamic and that big, and of course, Black folks, we are very spiritual. So you have Deion coming in and saying, God sent me to Jackson State. Well, everybody was like, oh, yeah. So you have to know that Jackson State's, the students, the alumni, the donors, the supporters, the community of Jackson itself. And you got to remember, Jackson State is in Jackson, Mississippi, a very small community. You have got to know that people were like, oh, we're about to roll. We are about to roll. And I think realistically, I wouldn't be surprised if people at Jackson State's attitude was, listen, I thought he might give us 3 years or 5 years. We didn't think the dude was going to be gone in 2. And so I think what happened is that he said, and I think when he gave his speeches about Jackson State, and then on top of that, he started talking about HBCUs, why not us, blah, blah, blah. And then he gets on, what's the podcast with my man?
Ken Sharp?
Right. No, not the brothers who play football, Ryan Clark and Channing Crowder, the Pivot.
Oh, the Pivot, yeah. The Pivot.
He gets on the Pivot and he starts debating hotly with Channing Crowder about why can't the number one recruit come to an HBCU. So he set these expectations that he was about to like legitimately create a dynasty that was going to just carry not just Jackson State, not just the SWAC, but HBCU football. And he gives credit for in a very short amount of time. He gets a lot of credit for really giving that spike and that spark, and then helping inspire these television deals and that sort of thing. But I do think that he came in and presented himself as some kind of messiah. And I do think he gave people the impression that he would at least give it 5 years, and then bounce. I don't think people are surprised that he bounced. I think people are surprised at how soon he bounced. And I think people were disappointed because of the expectation he set up. And whether it was a perceived expectation or a real expectation, it's an expectation nonetheless, and that's what I kind of found. That's what I kind of found a bit disappointing. It's not that he left, it's the way that he left, and it's how soon he left. Because honestly, I was watching HBCU football on ESPN channels that nobody else was watching, before Deion Sanders got to Jackson State. It was the viewing, it was much more lively. ESPN they were putting some of their better commentators on some of those games and that sort of thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is, we're riding a bit of a wave here. That's not so bad. This is cool. This is going to be all right. And then boom. So that's what I think. I think it was those two things. I think it was the expectation he created, but then also just realizing that that expectation took root the way it did because of this family-like environment that you have among HBCU culture.
I hear you. What I'm never going to do publicly is question what someone said God told him to do, unless it's outlandish.
Right.
You said God sent him there. He did, and God can also send him somewhere else, right? We put the time constraint on you. 2-3 years. Okay, that you put limitations on God. He had a job to do, his mindset, and we talk about taking opportunities when they come. And again, we will get into that in a hot second about this opportunity, about how difficult that actually is to go do what he's about to go do, and how often they don't come available, right? So you go there with expectation. Would you want him not to be confident coming in the door? What coach at what university doesn't come in and smoke? When dude left Notre Dame and went down to New Orleans, your school, not your school, down there talking about and tried to use the accent and come in. He was trying to be endearing and look like an ass. We're going to come down here, bro. It's okay.
I was like, what are you doing, Kelly?
Right.
What are you doing?
He's a great coach. He's going to have LSU competitive again, but he struggled at first trying to come in and crack that culture, but he had to do and say what he needed to do to get in the door. It's called salesmanship. My statement again is we expect, watch, anticipate it to happen everywhere else, but mad that it happened to us. It's going to happen. He did what he needed to do. He got the win and got the money up, and I still believe he left a blueprint on how to make this thing go for you. Because I don't know anybody else that got game day down there. I don't know anybody else that had a combine. I don't think anybody's pulled that. And you got other great coaches in the SWAC and everywhere else. They didn't pull no combine together. Eddie Jordan up at TSU. Go OHIO. You don't hear nothing about Eddie. I don't think winning and I don't know how TSU is doing.
Yeah, we're struggling. My Tigers are struggling.
But he has the same connects and same that whatever, and he's bringing some hitters with him, and those guys are still getting to the league, and the program's going to be fine. But we're okay with that. Well, they had black college struggling. Go. He comes down there and lights it on fire, and we, as a culture, expect him to stay like Eddie Sr. did, because Eddie couldn't go nowhere else at the time. And I do believe if Eddie Jr. got off of that money, Eddie Jr., we talking about go Rowdy to Buffalo. He'd be on it as well. So you miss me with all that. We're going to be hitting. Now miss me, because you'd be a fool not to go and get the bag. That's what we teach our kids, right? We're going to get this education, find opportunities, make good decisions. You have to make a business decision. He made a business decision. And God sent him to Colorado. So that's my thing with it. Let's not be all pious about, well, we are this and we're that. It's almost like I hear it and I interpret it as, in Mark's interpretation is that HBCUs play themselves to the back row. We good over here. We're education, yes. All of that. It's okay. We're not that good here. No, it's not okay.
Right.
Because it helps drive the whole enchilada. The schools spend millions and millions and billions of dollars to make it all work. And we know our HBCUs are struggling in certain areas. And this was helping bring in revenue. But the template has been set to get it, because kids are still going to come there now. They know they can get to the league or wherever they want to go from an HBCU, no matter where it is. It's all about marketing, all exposure, and it's all about that coach's connections. So that's my thought on it. And I just really hope that those who really feel some kind of way about like he should have stayed forever. No, sometimes we stay too long.
But give Jackson State some credit. Give the Jackson State alumni and fans some credit. I don't think they expected him to stay forever. And I think they were pretty realistic that he was going to bounce as soon as he got the best offer. I think they were very realistic. But I think their beef, the ones who didn't like it, and of course you're going to always have the fans who want people to stay forever. I mean, everybody's looking for the next Eddie Robinson to build the next Grambling. Everybody's looking for that. And that's not going to really happen. And I mean, even when it comes to presidencies, right, you're not going to have, it's going to be a long time before you see another Norman Francis who spent 46 years as a president of Xavier, and a William Harvey who spent 40 some odd years as the president of Hampton, right? It's gonna be a lot if we ever see that again, So I do think there are some people who are a bit unrealistic that you're not going to see that kind of tenure like an Eddie Robinson did at Grambling. But I will defend Jackson State fans who are saying, I didn't think the brother was going to be around all that long, but I didn't think he was going to make it just 2 years in Jet. And I think the other sense of betrayal that I think a lot of people in HBCU culture are feeling is that it is great that Deion came with all the swagger. And you're right. The combine, getting game day down there, all that stuff. I know Jackson State's enrollment applications are, I would love to see the percentage of jump. Yeah. I know that happened. But I think that people are somewhat offended that Deion acted as if he was bringing something to HBCUs that HBCUs could never dream of having. And he came and just swooped in and gave, like you said, he gave a blueprint, which he gave a blueprint for football, you know. But the thing that I think a lot of people are offended about is that in the same breath, you really need to acknowledge that HBCUs gave you an opportunity. And because I firmly believe that dude would probably still be coaching high school ball if Jackson State had not called him and said, "Come on over to Jackson." You know, he got his fame from Florida State. He made his fortune in the NFL. But when he needed a degree so that he could do the high school thing, he got it from Talladega. All right. And I think there are people whose attitude about him is, hey, listen, you can talk all the noise you want. You can be prime time all day and all night. We love the swagger you brought. We love the energy you brought. We love all that you brought. But at some point, you need to acknowledge that a part of the reason you got to this stage of your career is because of HBCUs. This wasn't a one-way deal where you came in and you gave us all this stuff and we're the little poor black people in the South. You know, thank you, sir, for helping us out. You know, it's not like that. It was like, yo, man, Deion, we see you trying to get your opportunity to come to Jackson State and get this opportunity. Let's do this thing. And I think it was very much.
That point right there. A great segue.
I think it was a two-way thing.
I feel something. Based on your explanation, I feel like it was a two-way thing. But I think Jack State got the better of the deal, and here's why. Jack State got what they wanted. They got exposure. They got big names. They got the name on them. We still talking about it. It's been months, and it's all about the marketing, right? Also, some good people. It's good for you, and they used him. It was mutual, but they also used him.
Oh, yeah, it was
They
mutual.
knew they were bringing to the table, and you knew that when you made that deal with this man, it was going to be a short one. Some said they knew it was going to be maybe 3, no more than 3, and he's going to be gone. Can he coach? We'll see. He did coach, and I'm going to say he did coach.
Yeah.
And he got a great squad behind him, and we'll see what happens in Colorado. I wish him the best, for real. But I feel like, Jack, they did use and got over on that too. They got a benefit out the deal. Now, will they be able to continue to grow themselves as they want to see them grow from this point? Is probably my bigger question. You got the influx, you got the exposure. What will you do now? Will you fall back and wait for another hero to roll through? Or will you work with what you got and continue to become great that way as you have? And will we move away and stop looking at you? Will you still get the top recruit? Because it comes down to the coach. Will you get a top level recruit? You may never get number 1 again, but only one school can get the number 1 recruit in the country.
Right.
Well,
hold on though. I mean, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to disagree that Jackson State got the better of the deal, but I think you gotta give Jackson State credit though for giving Deion a platform to get to a Power 5.
All the credit. No, I'm not saying that.
And on top of that, but is Colorado going to call him if they're not sitting there going, holy crap, how did he pull the number 1 recruit to that school? If he can do it down there, he can do it up here in Colorado. And so, Deion got a sweet deal because of Jackson State. He got a very sweet deal because of Jackson State. And honestly, Mark, I think you got to look at this. I think you really got to look at this also in a much more holistic context of how many HBCUs are giving so many Black folks opportunities still today that they couldn't get elsewhere. I'm going to use myself as an example because I got this opportunity to do a big career change into PR. I did that because Southern University in New Orleans came calling, right? Mm-hmm. I wanted to move up to a bigger market. I wanted to get a little bit more pay. Somebody said, "Hey man, there's Paul Quinn in Dallas. That president he's been noticing you." So, and I'm not sitting here going, "Oh man, I don't really want to, I don't really want to move to another HBCU." I was like, "No, okay, cool. I'll take that opportunity." Now, at the same time, no, I realize I'm in the same city. I'm in the same metroplex with SMU, TCU, University of North Texas. So I got 3 big ones right there that if I wanted to go to, I could give that a shot. And when my opportunity came to look at another opportunity, then I did take a look at SMU. I did take a look at TCU. They weren't feeling me. They were not feeling me at all. How did I get back? And I had to pivot away from higher ed, PR, and marketing. Well, how did I get back in HBCU? So, and now because of the HBCU I'm at right now, I had this great opportunity from the American Marketing Association. I got nominated for Higher Ed Marketer of the Year, but for the grace of Dillard University saying, "Eddie, we're going to give you a shot." And we're gonna let you move how you need to move so you can build your career. And They left me alone and let me do my thing. They let me figure out how I wanted to build my career and that sort of thing. And I know that in the culture of HBCUs, this is another thing that I think is such a big deal that people need to pay attention to. Black folks, when they work at HBCUs, you're a bit safer if you fall down and bust your nose, because you can get right back up and keep on going. For Black folks who work at PWIs, it's not that easy. You fall down and bust your nose, people are like, "Oh, you busted your nose, huh? Too bad for you. Sucks for you."
Right.
Get on up there, Sparky. Get back at it. But at an HBCU, they're just like, "Man, this really sucks. But you know what? Get back up. We're gonna walk with you. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough for you. It's gonna be rough for me, but it's gonna be rough for us." Mm-hmm. And so I think we really, really need to, really put credit where it is deserved with HBCUs, even though we struggle with resources. And we know you ain't got to tell those of us who work at HBCUs, and you don't have to tell the alumni that we struggle with resources. We hear it all day and all night. That point has been made very well, especially when we walk around and look at some of our buildings. That point is made very well. But what I think the bee in the bonnet of the HBCU community is, damn, man, why don't you give us some credit for doing something right? And Deion is sitting in Colorado with this multi-million-dollar deal because an HBCU gave him a shot, Mm-hmm. And so I think, he did he did some great stuff with Jackson State. There's no doubt. But Jackson State did some great stuff for him too.
What do you think about? And I totally support that. I'm not saying they didn't, and yes, it was an opportunity provided that by the HBCU. What about the question? Did Jackson State try to counter, or did they think there's no way we could even get close? Or do you really think it was about the money for Deion to leave? Because stuff was being said afterwards that led me to integrate that was more than the money. It was some stuff. I feel like it was promises broken. To me, I said the pivot was so harsh and so quick, it appeared to me something was said behind closed doors that was not lived up to, right? He said in front of kids, "I don't need the bag. You worth several million. You really don't need the bag. He's doing this, whatever." But there was a promise that was not kept. My assessment, my interpretation. What do you feel about that?
I mean, it's possible. It's possible. But here's the problem with that. There's so much of it that's open to interpretation also, because so let me tell you, let me have you feel my pain as an HBCU PR director.
Okay.
People will air out dirty laundry in a second. All right. And everybody's like, "Well, it's because y'all got too much dirty laundry." It's like, no, it's because Black folks are easy targets. We don't mind hurting each other. We don't mind that at all. We will drag each other through the mud and air our dirty laundry in the media in a second. All right. Now, we're not going to do it to white folks, but we damn sure going to do it to each other. And so that happens all the time. What happened between closed doors at Jackson State? I do not know. I couldn't begin to tell you, but I also will say that no matter what comes out in the media, I think you always have to take into consideration that there's one side of the story, there's another side of the story, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. So what probably happened is that Jackson State said what they wanted from it and what they were gonna do. Deion said what he wanted from it, what he was gonna do, and they both sat in the room, and neither one was right and neither one was wrong. And they both said, okay, you know what? Maybe the best idea is for you to go on your route and fulfill your dream of coaching at a Power 5. And Deion says, all right, I gave y'all blah, blah, blah. Here's your blueprint, and so I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna tell you something that I thought was really interesting. And Eddie Brown mentioned this on my podcast. He said that Deion came in, and within his first couple of months, some wacky situation happened where he thought somebody stole his wallet.
Oh, right.
And somebody moved his wallet or whatever. And I'm thinking if somebody moved his wallet, it's probably because it was out in the open in an unsafe place, so they were watching his back. But he gets out and publicly says, somebody at Jackson State stole my wallet. And when he did that, I'll never forget. When he did that, I was sitting at my computer and I watched it. And I was actually talking to the guy who was my boss at the time. And I said, this is what happens when you put all your eggs in a basket with a celebrity. This is what happens because celebrities act like celebrities and they just go off the cuff and all that stuff. And I think if I were a betting man, I would bet that one of the issues that Deion probably has with Jackson State is bureaucracy, because state institutions are very bureaucratic and move notoriously slow on everything. And if he broke one policy or one procedure, it wasn't Jackson State saying you did something wrong. It was the state of Mississippi saying you did something wrong. And he probably had a hard time dealing with that sort of thing. I know I had a hard time dealing with it when I was at a state institution. I was just like, word. Because I'll never forget when I was at Suno and I found out that salaries were public record. I was just like, yo, what word? Oh man. And I was like, I gotta get out of here because I can't deal with that. And so I would say that was probably something, because of the way Deion moves and the way he does things, I would say that that's probably something that was probably kind of problematic for him at Jackson State. And it's interesting because I'm interested in how that might be going for him at the University of Colorado. So, because that's a whole different issue up there if he decides to break a policy or procedure up there. That's
right. I mean, if you put stuff in your contract, if you leave like you did them, here's what's going to happen. Yo, you got all of this over here. So, we're here. Now, we can fire. Again, those are the contracts, but that's the lifestyle of a high-level coach, right?
It is.
And ain't nobody feeling sorry for someone who get fired and get all their money. Not doing it. My concerns were, they're worried about the kids. We talked about this a little bit earlier. What about the players? Unfortunately for the athlete, we're trained to deal with adversity. You've got to be able to do these things. It's not a certainty. We just saw the other night, it's not promised. Like, prayers up for the young brother, man. That it was horrific.
Oh, Hamlin, yeah.
But that's what as athletes we sign up for. We can't think about those things. So you can't be, what if they lost their coach? They're not going to perform. I have
that's everywhere.
I had 4 coaches in 5 years at a D2 school. It happened all the time. He got there in a year, turned the program around, went back to Utah because they had a better offer for him.
Yeah.
All right, coach, peace, love. But I can, he passed away during COVID, but I can still pick up the phone and call that dude.
Yeah.
And call him coach, and he knows who I am. Those kids will have a connection with him that most will never understand. Some hate him, okay? But some will still be looking and seeking counsel. And all I want to see, outside of you saying giving some credence to the HBCU for the opportunity, is will you open up the coffers and allow the HBCUs come get them checks and come play some games? You wouldn't go play Alabama, which was a prudent move because you didn't have the whole line. You should not do that. You shouldn't play Akron. You shouldn't go play the Zips without a line.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you can't still facilitate and help the culture that you just left. If he does those things for me, I'm good. If you reach back and do something that you have the influence to do, hey, you got a homecoming, you got preseason. Jack State, come on out. No, don't do like we accused Eddie of. He said they lost money when he went out to UCLA. I don't know, allegedly. Spend all that money and it made no money. That was why Eddie wanted to jack him, allegedly. So if you do those things as someone now if you use this position and now you're in a position of influence, if you're not turning around and helping out something somewhere down the road to go back to where you come from to give your credit back to, I will then have a problem with you and call BS.
So you know what? So you bring up Eddie Robinson Jr., who by the way, for clarity, is not the son of Eddie Robinson who coached at Grambling. So Eddie Robinson Jr., actually, he and I went to elementary school together, and I know his dad. And so Eddie Robinson Jr., well, at one point infamously, but now famously said he ain't swag. Deion ain't swag. And what you just said about you really hope he reaches back, I think that was part of the spirit of what Eddie Robinson Jr. said. He was like, okay, I'm going to be here, thick and thin, hell and high water. If I say I'm going to be here for 5 years, then I'm really married to this culture. Now, whether or not he would actually do that, if Alabama State winds up having a bomb season next year,
it will fire his ass.
If they bomb season is if they have the bomb of a season. I mean,
okay.
If they have a great season, if they have a great season, and University of Louisiana Lafayette calls him, he gets to come back home. Then does he take the job? Most likely he will, right? I mean, we know most likely he's going to take that job a little sooner than he expected to take the job. Mm-hmm. But I think part of what he was saying when he said he ain't swag, Deion ain't swag, I think part of the spirit of his saying that was, listen, I know this culture, I know everybody's expectations, and I know where these kids come from, and I understand, and blah, blah, blah. And not to mention, Eddie Robinson Jr. actually went to Alabama State. And so I think part of the spirit of what he says is that any opportunity that I get to give back to my alma mater or another HBCU, I'm going to take that opportunity because I know this culture. I know who we are. And I want to say one thing for clarity, because, there are all these people who are like, man, Deion donated part of his salary to Jackson State. That is not uncommon. I donate part of my salary to Dillard. And I don't get Deion money. All right. So a lot of college presidents all over the country donate parts of their salaries to their institutions. So no, Deion is not some great philanthropist who opened up his pocketbook as wide as he could possibly open it, and Jackson State is so much richer because of it. That is not an unusual move. So I think people need to understand that. For all the people,
right? I mean, there's so many, tragically, that the HBCU's culture has to even discuss that. You know what I'm saying? That it's tragedy that you could not offer a stronger salary. It's tragedy that, if so true, alleged that, he paying for food and hotels because, probably didn't want to stay there at the Motel 6. He want to stay over the Hyatt Grand Regency. Mm-hmm. He going to pay it, then he paid it. But the thing that they can't, if they're not having the necessities they need to be successful in sport, we're talking football and education, then that is a travesty, right? And
it is.
It's a travesty. Yeah. And so what will now you do to help? Now, you've been exposed to it. You weren't swag, but you saw inside of it. Right? You saw it. You were there. You affected it. You helped move it. Will you continue to support it, or will you move on like she ain't happened? And that's the part. That's the part I'm going to struggle with.
But so I tell you what, if we want Deion and other people like him who are highly influential, who bring a lot of energy, and who are quote unquote the heroes, if we want them to do anything, if they can do anything, they need to get into the business of finding ways to influence policy, because what's really been jacking up Jackson State, Alcorn State, Mississippi Valley State, and the state of Mississippi are state policies that have been deliberately underfunding those HBCUs for years, for decades, right? That's what the real problem is. It's not that a bunch of HBCUs get money, can't handle their own money, and Black folks are just too dumb to figure out how to handle money. That's not it. That's not it. What it is that you have had these systems, that you've had these state governments that have deliberately underfunded state HBCUs, the biggest ones in the country. So that's how in the state of Maryland, you have this 577 million, which is not nearly enough settlement that happened for the state HBCUs in Maryland. That settlement that happened back in 21. That's what that settlement was all about. It was about deliberately underfunding the HBCUs. And then it was also about how the state would take programs that HBCUs were doing and give the same programs to University of Maryland College Park and other universities around Maryland. Like the HBCUs weren't even doing it, and siphoning students away from those HBCUs, to go to the schools that had those programs. And so if people like Deion really want to use his influence, the places that it really, really counts, policy is a big place that it counts. But I think another place that it counts is influencing private-public partnerships with HBCUs so that you get more corporations donating money to HBCUs to help students complete their degrees. A lot of students do not finish their degrees at HBCUs because they simply run out of money. A lot of these kids come from households that don't have that kind of money. One of the most interesting things that I heard is somebody was like, oh, well, the girls at Spelman and the boys at Morehouse, they ain't got nothing to worry about. They got rich parents. No, they don't. Some of them do. And it's a very small percentage. Mm-hmm. But a lot of those students at Spelman and Morehouse, they are struggling to get through those institutions because their families are simply running out of money. So if there's a way to get more funding into HBCUs, if he wants to really use his influence, get more money into HBCUs on the academic side of the house to help those schools so that they can fund students finishing up their degrees, then I will have mad respect for Deion. If he can leverage his influence to do stuff like that, if he wants to really reach back, like you said, if he wants to reach back, then I think looking at important things like not that sports aren't important, not that football isn't important, but I think looking at some of the bigger issues where people can really say, you know what, Deion, you did your thing, brother. You gave Jackson State 2 years, but that other stuff you did, that's boss. That's a boss move. We all right with that. I think that's where he can really, if he's still feeling charitable with his nice big University of Colorado paychecks, that's how I think he can be helpful. And you're right. It's not about the bag. If he really wants to leverage his influence, that's the way he can do it. I think the most important thing Deion can do, though, is number one, shut his damn mouth and to, enjoy his experience at the University of Colorado. Don't try a Jackson State smear campaign because he's dangerously close to that. And I think the other thing he can do is probably take a class on higher education administration so he can understand why things fall apart at HBCUs sometimes. And take a nice policy class. Take a public policy class so he can understand that as well.
Yeah, he'd be too busy chasing behind that buffalo. That's not happening. But and again, all that being said, this is a great conversation. Again, I never claimed to have all the answers beside HBCU. That was not my plight. Yeah. But you see the struggle, then you watch this, you kind of go, just don't want anybody to miss the essence of things that happen. I mean, out of this, still great things happen, right? Still, like you said, be able to go to the platform of HBCU and elevate, right? When no one else gave you a chance, you got turned out by all your schools, your own school, you weren't going back to Florida State. That wasn't going to happen. And you get there, and now you at Colorado, where then we go, when's the last time a black coach got hired for a Power 5 job? He went to Notre Dame, brother was there one semester, and they kicked him out and brought somebody else in there. Then he lied. The guy that brought in, he lied on his resume. And I was like, well, we could have kept the brother. I don't understand. But now there's another brother there. You know what I'm saying? These things don't happen a lot. And I am rooting for his success there in that program. And hopefully he's still influencing those young men, like he said, God called him to do. But that's him and his maker. But I'm going to stand by that's what he did because I watched those kids and I feel like he did touch some souls.
Yeah.
He did do some things while he was there, although brief. Sometimes it doesn't take a long time to make an impact. I just continually hope that he has a success, that the HBCU and Jack State will continue to find their next one and continue the excellence. Point blank, period. That's we and hopefully the funding from these corporations will see the benefit of still giving and still connecting and doing whatever, because some of them didn't give before, gave because of, maybe they'll stick there and go, well, since we're here, why not just continue and really see the need and give you what you were saying about helping kids get that education, which ultimately we know our kids need before they need to go get the scholarship.
And listen, the effect of HBCUs is undeniable. HBCUs produce the most Black doctors, the most Black lawyers. And I will say this, I am going to die on this hill, is that every time, I know that not everybody, I know college isn't for everybody, but every time I hear somebody Black say that, I cringe, because you are talking about us losing out on yet another Black doctor, losing out, and we need more Black folks in healthcare. We're talking about losing out on another Black lawyer, and we need more Black folks in the legal profession and in government and on judges' benches. We need that. HBCUs have been giving that since the 19th century, right? And so I think that is something that's really really pertinent to understand. The other thing, and I think this is another important point, you know, you had these folks, and I thought it was so funny when Joey Galloway said he had never heard of an HBCU until Deion got to Jackson State. I was like, bro, you are lying. You are lying. I was so high with Joey Galloway. I went on the doggone Seattle Seahawks roster from his rookie year, and I saw that fool played with two dudes at least who went to HBCUs. One was an offensive lineman. So you knew about HBCU. Stop lying, Joey Galloway. But anyway, I think the other thing is that HBCU culture. You know, I know a lot of these people like to say, well, I never heard of it, but HBCU culture has been strong and rolling for a long time. You know, homecoming. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm going to say. Homecoming, you know.
Right.
I mean, it's been there. What Deion managed to do is he managed to put it on a bigger stage, but it's not like I've been to Hampton's homecoming. Hampton's homecoming doesn't have a cajillion people there, but they ain't ashamed of it. Like they like their homecoming the way it is. It is rolling. I had a good time. I cannot wait to go back to a Hampton homecoming.
Well, let's stir the pot a little bit. And it ain't better than G-Ho. G-Ho's the best thing running. Let them work that out there on TV land.
Bucket list. Right. G-Ho is on my bucket list, right? Like,
G-Ho. For those who don't know, look, I didn't find out a few years ago, so I don't act like I'm back on my brand new, but I just
really? Yeah.
I mean, you didn't know. I told you, PWI. Yeah. What's a hoe? What? Who's a hoe? Why is G a hoe?
Who you calling out? I don't know. I mean, but seriously, dude. I mean, like, but just because, and listen, I went to Loyola, New Orleans. I didn't go to Southern's homecoming. I was wrong. I should have gone to those homecomings. You know, I should have done that road trip. But it doesn't, just because I didn't go to Southern's homecoming, just because I didn't go to Gramblin's homecoming, it doesn't mean it wasn't rolling. And I think one of the things that got me, and this is another reason that I did the podcast episode, it just got me that there were all these people acting as if that just because they had never heard of Jackson State or an HBCU doesn't mean that nobody ever in life had ever heard one. I was like, come on, you ain't that hot. Stop it. Ain't nobody hanging on your every word like that, you know? That's a you problem. That's not a them problem. That's a you problem.
Right. And I did find it funny listening and watching the announcers try to navigate what to say about these colleges that were playing.
Oh, bro, that was hilarious.
No clue. These athletes, these black. We say black. They play really hard. Look at those. They're running. Man. I was like, oh, dude, you're killing me.
So you know what? So I think that was another. So I think that's another thing that people like Deion can really, if he really wants to leverage his influence, show people how there is a strong culture in HBCUs beyond football and bands and Greek life. You know, show them that, dude. You needed a college degree, so you went to Talladega. If you really should be talking up anybody, you should be talking up your alma mater, Deion. Where is the Talladega love? You got to give Talladega, give your alma mater some love. You know, and so I think that people need to do that. And I think also keeping the context in history, do I get a chance to get a full ride scholarship to Loyola University in New Orleans if my daddy had not set me up by going to Xavier University of Louisiana. You know, my mom's parents went to Xavier, and I had all these cousins who went to Xavier and Southern and Grambling and Morehouse and Spelman. You know, but for them and other ancestors of mine, I got the opportunity to get that full ride scholarship to Loyola because let's be clear, you know, and I love my alma mater and all due respect to my alma mater, but they weren't checking for people like me years ago. Okay, so I think that's another frustration that the HBCU community kind of expresses, and I think that's part of the reason that part of what their spirit is like, yo, give us some credit, give us some. And when a lot of Black folks were saying HBCUs are irrelevant, there was still a lot of Black folks who were saying, no, HBCUs are still more relevant than they've ever been. And they stuck with it and they kept going to HBCUs, you know? And so I think there's a lot of that spirit also in people's disappointment with the way Deion handled everything. But I wish him luck at Colorado, boy, because that's a job he got.
He's a job right there.
That's a job. I want to see him do what a Willie Fritz did with Tulane.
Oof.
Because Willie Fritz went from 2-11 to 2-12 to 12-2. Won the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, well, we gonna
beat USC.
All right, Willie.
Come on, Deion. Come on, Deion. Let me see.
Always,
Come on, Deion. Deion, take that Colorado team and beat the snot out of Alabama next year or Georgia.
Listen, you already got some people that left there and went there. But anyway, we'll get back to that later on. You are number 2 lineman in Alabama. You are 8 lineman everywhere else. That's what I'm going to say with that. Eddie, thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your insights and thoughts with me. I love having a conversation with you. We could talk the rest of the night and sharing your experiences and whatnot. And just, again, helping everybody understand truly what is more to what's going on. And it really is just football. And there's really more to it. And the opportunities that we get in our platforms, in our sphere of influence, we need to make sure we're taking advantage of them 360. You don't know who you're helping. You don't know who you're pushing. You don't know which doors you're opening or leaving open for someone else to come behind. He needs to go out there and do a great job so other Black coaches can get hired, right? That we just know that's a fact. They're going to leave there and go other places. He said he wants to elevate his coaches. I hope they all get elevated at some point and continue to do that job not because they're Black, for my white friends listening, because they're good.
Because they're good.
And they happen to be Black. But we know we don't get those opportunities much. So we hope that happens as well. Make sure you all subscribe and listen to the For Our Edification podcast, Eddie Francis. And you still there with your wife? You guys still there together? Or did you boot off?
No, I didn't boot off, man. Me and Dr. Halima Lee France. She's the smart one because she has a PhD.
Oh, okay. Well, then all right, then I talked to one person all night, apparently.
I married up, man.
You leveled up.
I outpunted my coverage, man.
Man, but Eddie, again, thanks so much. Much love to you, bro. Mike's always open for you. Just let me know whenever you need me, and I will be present. Thank you so much. And as always, you can reach your dreams with a step ladder, then they're probably too low.